the environment was like for you as a person interested in electronic music in the rockist 70s?
Well, the big things for me in '77 was that I thought punk was supposed to be new, and I thought punk was supposed to be the future. And by autumn '77, it was becoming obvious that it wasn't. And it's become, particularly very much in London, punk had become very involved with the music industry, and you started to get terrible music industry punk groups. And also you had New Wave, so you had people like the Stranglers and the Jam, no thanks. So when the editor of, I was working for Sounds, the editor of Sounds, Alan Lewis, asked me and James Suck and Sandy Robertson, who were all sort of punk correspondents, would we do another big feature called Images of New Wave Part 3? And we said, no, we won't, because it's over and it's boring. And he said, well, what are you going to do then? We concocted this thing called New Music, which is basically about the future. Around the same time the first Sex Pistols album had come out, and it sounded like a dead end. It's a great album, but it sounded like a dead end. And the Clash were getting very militaristic and very macho. And we all thought that electronic music was more interesting, particularly because of Low, particularly because of Trans-Europe Express, and particularly because of electronic disco records, particularly I Feel Love, which is probably one of the greatest records of the 20th century, and Space Magic Fly, a bit of Euro disco. So we concocted this thing called New Music, and Jane and I wrote editorials, which is basically about the start of electronic music. And the big feature about Kraftwerk by Stephen Davis, and articles about Throm Gristle, Perubu, Devo, Dub, Disco. And it was over 2 weeks in Sounds. NME got very cross with us because we'd scooped them, and we were right.
I think that article had quite a big impact for me personally. I remember coming out, and I remember Sounds itself felt like a sort of fresher music paper. It had bigger pictures. And as a very young person, I liked that, I liked the pictures. And I also very much liked Trans-Europe Express. But John Foxx, 77, 78, what was going on in your world at that point?
Well, we come to the same conclusions, but I hate to say it, but a bit early, I think, because that's why we got involved with email in 76, you know. And we come out to, it was a period slightly before punk, because what impressed me was the Velvets initially, and then German electronic stuff like Neue, you know, who were on the scene in 74 and 75 really. So there was this thing that hadn't got a name yet, which I felt was the next thing that was going to happen, or was happening when we kicked off really. And then there was the New York Dolls, which was something very left field and completely not to do with it all, but had the same spirit. And when punk kicked off in England, it just felt inevitable anyway, because I used to see Nick from the Clash and people around, you know, at gigs, and they used to come and watch us play and so on. There's lots of little stories about that. But the problem with English punk, it had a much narrower base than the American and German versions, because we got this terrible snobbery in England about art and poetry and experimentalism and so on. So the English variety of punk was a Bash Street Kids variety. It was a sort of pretend working class. It wasn't anything to do with working class. I'm working class, you know. But I like poetry. But punk didn't. And because it was so narrow, it got narrower and narrower and turned into Oi in the end, you know, this awful bloody caricature of what British working class is supposed to be. And because of all this class crap in England, it killed that great native art form that McLaren was trying to make work. You know, we killed it ourselves. In every other country, in America it's still going. Germany it's still going, you know. These things are still happening. You've got bands in America like the Soft Moon, you know, which is a fantastic band, you know, fantastic guy actually. But it's a spirit that we lost in England very, very sadly, I think, you know. And a few bands carried it on. There are traces of it, you know. There was the Joy Division thing that moved on. There was the Cure, you know, aspects of all these bands that carried on. But it died very early on. So that became electronic music. All the spirit of that anger and that forgive me, fuck you sort of idea went into electronic music, but it changed. Instead of shouting at the wall, it became this very cold, controlled, psychotic stare, which I like a lot, you know. It's more in accord with the developments in the original spirit.
So, John, because Ultravox had got started earlier, did you find yourself with events kind of overtaking what the band was started out to be, and then you wanted to change what the band was going to be, and in the end you had to press the eject button? Is that sort of how that panned out for you?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I just found I wasn't a suitable pop star. I hated it, you know. I didn't like touring. You know, I started a band as an art project at art school. That's what it was. It was a piece of art, you know, because I was interested in all those movements like Fluxus and Design for the New World and Situationism and all that stuff. And you know, I was a theoretical artist trying to make something real, and I did. I made a band, you know. I designed a band. That was my art school project, so I did it. And then I found I was no good at it. You know, I hated touring and I hated the lifestyle. You know, I'm a painter, really. I want to work in a studio, and working in a recording studio is that. So that's what I am. You know, I'm not really a performer. I could do it, just about, but you know, where I'm best is actually in the studio. And that's why I like electronic music, because that's it. You know, it's a studio machine that you work with. Live, it's always awkward.
Yes.
Always.
Okay, Mark Reeder, so 77, 78, you're living in Manchester, you're from Manchester. Working in a record shop?
Yeah, industry, just in the
Okay, and just as it seems to me as an outsider, Manchester was starting to become very interesting. You buggered off to Berlin. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, you know, working in a record shop for many years, I've already kind of experienced this development of the music going from like the hippie thing into this punk thing, and it had come to a point where I thought I'd seen everything, and well, it was actually the point when Sam Park and Moi came out. I was like, that's it now. So
that was the killer record for you.
It sort of sold its soul. You know, it's a parody of what the punk thing was supposed to be. And there was a handful of bands who were trying to do something a little bit different and not getting any kind of recognition whatsoever. One of the bands being Joy Division. And Rob Gretton and then I knew Tony Wilson from coming into the shop every Saturday night and wanting to listen to all the records that I kept aside for him. And I knew Rob Gretton from being a disc DJ. And it was like, you know, that they were my mates, you know. I knew Ian before as well, and they were my mates, and they weren't getting any gigs. No one was really interested in this band, you know. And I thought, they're really good. Why are they not interested? And when this record came out, I thought I saw it. And I just really wanted to go back into this. I was always fascinated by synthesizers from being a small child. The first record was Telstar that I bought in 1962, and that was an instrumental record. And I was hooked from that moment, you know. And it wasn't really a synthesizer record, but it was an instrumental track. And later on, when you know, the first stereo sound like I ever heard was like someone playing. This guy was selling a stereo to my cousin, and he played Walter Carlos, switched on Bach, and there was
The artist formerly known as Walter Carlos.
fascinated by, you know, it's called Wendy Carlton. Well, I was fascinated by this sound that I'd never heard before. It sounded like Doctor Who, you know. That was Doctor Who was this thing that kind of like frightened us all as little kids, and it was the first kind of like realization of electronic science fiction. It was futuristic, you know. And I was like, you know. And then this Walter Carlos record was also had a similar kind of thing to me, and I wanted to buy every single record that had a synthesizer on it. And the fact was, in Britain. I mean, I could never have afforded a synthesizer in my life. They were like a utopian, rare and expensive. You know, so we had to kind of fall back onto what was left to us, which was guitars and bass and drums. And I never wanted to really be a performer, to be honest. There was like, you know, I was in bands because it was in a band called Joe Stalin's Red Star Radio Band. We didn't have a singer, we practiced in a mate's front room.